Lyria and the Symphony of Seasons. In the heart of the sparkling enchanted valley, where the flowers glowed with soft pastel lights and the trees hummed lullabies at dusk, lived a graceful grasshopper named Lyria. Her wings shimmered like emerald silk, and her songs could soothe even the crankiest dragonfly. Every morning, she hopped onto a dandelion stage and filled the air with music that made butterflies dance and bees twirl in the breeze. Lyria loved the warmth of the sun, the giggles of the wind, and the laughter that echoed through the hills whenever she played. But while she sang and danced, the rest of the meadow was buzzing with activity. In a hidden burrow lined with moss and twinkling firefly lights, a tiny but mighty ant named Thistle was already wide awake. She wore a leaf apron and carried a tiny thimble basket. Thistle wasn't alone. She belonged to a community of ants who believed in planning, preparing, and staying 2 steps ahead of every season. Each ant had a role, and Thistle's was the food keeper. Her mission? Gather enough seeds, crumbs, and honey drops before the winds grew cold and the clouds began to snow. She marched with purpose, always watching the skies for the first signs of autumn. One sunny morning, as Thistle balanced a blueberry seed atop her head, she passed by Lyria, who was composing a new melody with a flute carved from reed. "Thistle," Lyria called out with a cheerful chirp. "You must hear this. It's a waltz for the wildflowers." Thistle paused, her antennae twitching. "I'd love to, Lyria, but I have 5 more seed pods to collect before sunset." Lyria twirled in the air. "But the sun is high, the breeze is warm, and your paws must be tired. Take a break and let the magic of music carry you away." Thistle smiled gently. "Music is beautiful, Lyria, but winter won't wait for songs. I must be ready." And with that, she scurried off, humming Lyria's tune under her breath. As golden leaves began to flutter from the treetops, a whisper spread through the valley. The festival of falling leaves was near. It was the most magical event of the year, when creatures of every size and shape gathered to celebrate the end of summer and the beginning of harvest. Lyria was overjoyed. She polished her wings with morning dew and strung flower petals into a crown. For her, this festival wasn't just a party, it was a stage. She would perform her new piece, the melody of morning mist, under the ancient willow of whispers, where echoes danced for days. Meanwhile, deep below a patch of mushrooms, Thistle and her fellow ants were preparing in their own way. They stacked berries, sealed jars of nectar with wax, and built cozy tunnels filled with woolly moss. Every corner of their underground home glowed with the soft flicker of lantern bugs. Thistle peeked outside and saw a crowd forming near the willow tree. She sighed. "Just one song," she told herself, then back to work. She trotted over just as Lyria stepped onto a stage made of woven reeds and daisies. The crowd fell silent. Lyria raised her tiny flute, closed her eyes, and began to play. The music shimmered through the air like stardust. The sky seemed to pause. Bees hummed in harmony. Squirrels stopped mid-leap. Even the wind, always in a hurry, took a breath and listened. Thistle was swept away by the melody. For a moment, she forgot about acorns, jars, and tunnels. She only heard the beauty of now. When the last note faded, the crowd burst into cheers and leaf confetti filled the sky. Lyria bowed deeply and spotted Thistle clapping in the back. "You came," Thistle nodded, eyes shining. "Your music, it's magic," Lyria giggled. "Told you it was worth a pause." But as the crowd danced and feasted, a chill brushed Thistle's back. She looked to the north. A single snowflake twirled down and landed on her paw. Winter had sent its first whisper. The very next morning, the enchanted valley awoke beneath a silver veil. Blades of grass sparkled with frost, mushrooms wore icy caps, and the once singing brook murmured a sleepy lullaby under a thin sheet of ice. Thistle was up before the first sunbeam touched the treetops. She zipped through the tunnels, checking stores, tightening leaf seals, and whispering plans to the younger ants. "The frost came early this year," she said. "We must hurry." Above ground, Lyria stretched her legs and yawned. She peeked out of her mushroom-shaped home, blinking at the cold shimmer covering her world. "How lovely and bright," she chirped, spinning in the air. But as she flew, a chill nipped her wings and made her shiver. She zipped back inside. Later that day, Lyria fluttered toward the ant colony. She tapped her flute case nervously. "Thistle," she called down the mossy entrance. "Do you have a moment?" Thistle emerged with her cheeks dusted in flour from grinding seeds. Everything all right? Lyria twirled her antenna. I was wondering, how long does winter last? Usually 3 moon cycles, Thistle replied, brushing off her apron. Sometimes more. Lyria's eyes widened. That long? Thistle tilted her head. Did you gather supplies? Lyria laughed awkwardly. I was composing. Thistle's expression softened, but worry crept into her heart. She glanced at Lyria's delicate wings and thought of the cold nights ahead. You can stay warm in your mushroom, she suggested. But food, that's harder to find now. Lyria frowned slightly. I guess. I didn't really think that far. The first snowflakes began to fall then, silent as whispers. Come back tomorrow, Thistle said gently. I'll see what I can share. Lyria smiled, her wings drooping. Thank you, Thistle. As night fell, Lyria curled up inside her hollow mushroom. The wind howled like a lonely wolf, and for the first time, the meadow was quiet, too quiet. Her flute sat beside her, untouched. The days grew shorter, and the stars blinked earlier each evening. The enchanted valley, once bursting with color and laughter, now slumbered beneath a soft white blanket. Trees stood like statues, rivers were still, and even the wind tiptoed through the quiet woods. Lyria hadn't played her flute in days. Wrapped in dandelion fluff and pine needles, she sat near her tiny window, watching the snowfall. Her stomach rumbled, but there was nothing left to nibble. No berries, no seeds, not even a crumb of honeycomb. She sighed and picked up her flute. With a trembling breath, she played a slow, gentle tune, the song of the silent sky. It was soft and lonely, like the whisper of wings under moonlight. Down in the tunnels, Thistle heard the notes floating through the air vents. She paused mid-stir as she prepared a stew of dried mushrooms and sweet roots. Her antennae twitched. She's hungry, Thistle said softly. The next morning, Thistle climbed out with a bundle wrapped in bark leaves. Inside were acorn biscuits, a spoonful of honey, and 2 roasted chestnuts. She knocked gently on Lyria's mushroom door. Lyria opened it, eyes wide. Thistle, you didn't have to. I know, Thistle smiled, but I wanted to. Tears welled in Lyria's eyes. Why are you so kind? Thistle shrugged. Because your music brought joy to our hearts. You gave us beauty in the sun. Now, we give you warmth in the snow. Lyria sat beside her, sharing the meal bite by bite. For the first time that winter, she felt full, not just in her belly, but in her heart. Tomorrow, she said between bites, I want to write a song of gratitude. Thistle grinned. Then I'll bring you a candle and some inkberries. And as the snow kept falling outside, inside the little mushroom house, 2 tiny friends sat side by side, one with a basket, the other with a flute, writing a new melody, one of kindness, sharing, and hope. The days that followed were filled with a new rhythm. Each morning, Thistle would arrive with a little bundle of food or a warm surprise, hazelnut soup, sugar-frosted beetleberries, or tiny mittens stitched from moss thread. And every evening, Lyria would compose a new piece inspired by the quiet magic of winter. She called her collection the Snowlight Songs. One melody sounded like snowflakes dancing, another felt like a fire crackling in the dark, and one, the most special of all, was a duet written just for her and Thistle. It was called The Winter Waltz. Word of Lyria's winter music spread throughout the Enchanted Valley. Creatures who once slept through the cold months now peeked out from their burrows and hollows, drawn to the sound of something warm and wonderful. One frosty evening, Thistle tapped on Lyria's door with her usual cheerful knock, but this time her eyes were sparkling with excitement. I have an idea, she said. What if we hosted a winter gathering? Lyria blinked. In the middle of the snow? Thistle nodded. We'll clear the glade near the old fern tree. We'll hang glowberries and light lantern bugs. You'll play your music, and everyone will bring what little they can to share. Lyria's wings fluttered with joy. That's the most beautiful idea I've ever heard. They spent the next 3 days preparing. Thistle and the ants carved a stage from a frozen tree stump, swept the snow, and set out little tables of pine bark. Lyria rehearsed under icicle arches, her melodies echoing across the trees like starlight. And when the night of the gathering came, fireflies lit the glade like golden stars. Rabbits, squirrels, owls, and even sleepy hedgehogs waddled in, bundled in leaf cloaks and moss hats. Everyone brought something: frozen berries, root pies, and spicy bark tea. Lyria stepped onto the stage, flute in hand. She glanced at Thistle, who gave her a proud nod. Then, with a gentle breath, Lyria began to play the Winter Waltz. It was soft and strong, like snow and fire all at once. Creatures swayed. Some cried quietly. Some held paws, claws, or wings. And in that moment, no one was cold. No one was hungry. They were simply together. After the music faded and the last lantern bug blinked out, the glade remained aglow, not with light, but with warmth. Lyria stood on the frozen stump, cheeks flushed, wings trembling with happiness. Around her, creatures murmured words like hope, joy, and miracle. Thistle approached, holding a small velvet pouch made of woven spider silk. "This is for you," she said, placing it gently in Lyria's hands. Lyria opened the pouch and gasped. Inside was a tiny stone that shimmered with every color of the northern lights. It pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. "It's called a Heartstone," Thistle explained. "It only glows when it's near someone who's brought true warmth to others." Lyria held the stone close. "I don't know what to say." "You already said it," Thistle smiled. "In every note you played." As the gathering ended, the animals returned to their winter shelters, carrying full bellies, full hearts, and the memory of music beneath the stars. For many, it was the first time winter felt magical. Back in her mushroom home, Lyria placed the Heartstone on her table beside a candle made of frozen berry wax. Its glow filled the room with a gentle light that never flickered, even when the wind howled outside. That night, as snow whispered against the windows, Lyria dreamed of summer, but not because she missed it. She dreamed of singing streams, blooming meadows, and the next festival of falling leaves, where she and Thistle would perform side by side. In the ant tunnels, Thistle added a final note to her winter journal. Lesson of the season. Not all treasures are stored underground. Some are made of music, friendship, and light that even snow cannot hide. Outside, the Heartstone's light glowed brighter than the stars. As the Heartstone's glow warmed Lyria's home, a new sound began to drift through the enchanted valley. Something softer than a breeze, older than any melody she had ever played. It came from the edge of the woods, where the trees grew tallest and the snow settled thickest. One morning, guided by curiosity and a tune only she could hear, Lyria fastened her scarf, slipped the Heartstone into her pouch, and fluttered toward the whispering willow, a sacred tree spoken of in woodland tales, but rarely seen in winter. Thistle, ever watchful, followed at a distance, worried for her friend. As Lyria approached, the great willow's branches swayed gently despite the still air. Snowflakes danced through the air like notes from a secret symphony. Lyria landed at the roots and closed her eyes. The whisper grew louder, not in volume, but in clarity. It wasn't just wind, it was music. The tree was singing. Each strand of its weeping branches vibrated with sound. Lyria touched one, and suddenly a vision bloomed in her mind. Ancient creatures gathered in warmth, stories sung not spoken, and songs passed from winter to spring to remind the world that cold never lasts forever. Thistle stepped beside her, eyes wide. "Do you hear it too?" Lyria nodded. "It's singing the memories of the forest." And just then, the Heartstone pulsed. The colors swirled and shimmered with the willow's rhythm. Lyria understood. This was her gift, not only to play, but to remember, to carry the voices of time through music. She sat beneath the willow and composed a new song, one that captured the stories of snow, of silence, and of the strength found in kindness. Thistle whispered, "What will you call it?" Lyria smiled, "The Song of the Whispering Willow." As her melody soared into the sky, even the frost seemed to pause and listen. The tree bowed ever so slightly, as if giving thanks. That evening, when they returned to the village, animals peeked out from their dens once more, not for food or warmth, but to hear the stories sung through flute and leaf, heart and stone. And the Heartstone glowed so bright that it lit a path through the snow. Winter's grip began to loosen. Icicles dripped with the first whispers of thaw, and the sky blushed earlier with each dawn. The Heartstone, now a beacon in the valley, continued to glow, its magic no longer hidden, but shared. Inspired by the magic of the whispering willow and the bond they had nurtured all season, Thistle and Lyria had one final idea before the snow melted entirely. A celebration not of the end of winter, but of what winter had taught them. They named it the Festival of Everlight. Creatures from every corner of the valley were invited. Invitations were etched in birch bark, carried by songbirds and squirrel messengers. The theme was simple: bring something from the heart. Preparations filled the final snowy days. Lantern bugs were gently awakened from their long naps. Glowberries were polished to their brightest gleam, and tiny frost bells were strung from trees. On the day of the festival, the glade sparkled with more light than any midsummer's eve. Even the moon looked down in awe. Lyria stepped onto the stage, not with just her flute this time, but with a full orchestra of forest friends. A mole on mushroom drums, a robin whistling harmony, and even Thistle playing a harp made of ice strings. The Heartstone sat at the center, glowing with every beat. They played the song of the whispering willow, the winter waltz, and finally, the snowlight finale, a medley of every melody born during those frozen months. And then, silence. A quiet so full it felt like a blanket of stars. Then came the cheers. From burrows, branches, nests, and nooks, animals clapped, stomped, and howled with joy. But the greatest moment came when the whispering willow itself shimmered in the distance, its branches glowing faintly in reply. Thistle turned to Lyria, eyes full of wonder. "We didn't just survive winter, we turned it into a story." Lyria, her wings shining in the lantern light, nodded, "And now it will live forever." As the night deepened, creatures danced, shared stories, and snuggled close beside glowing stones gifted by the Heartstone itself. Tiny fragments of light, each one holding a piece of the season's magic. And high above, stars watched over them, twinkling in rhythm with the songs below. As the Festival of Everlight drew to a gentle close, snowflakes began to fall once more, not heavy or cold, but soft and shimmering, as if kissed by stardust. The forest fell into a peaceful hush, not from sleep, but from awe. Lyria stood at the edge of the glade, looking out over the snow-dusted treetops. In her hands, the Heartstone pulsed with steady light, as if it too were breathing. She felt the music still dancing in her chest, like a lullaby from the trees themselves. Thistle joined her, brushing snow off her antennae. "Do you think the magic will stay when the snow is gone?" Lyria smiled gently. "It's not the snow that held the magic. It was the kindness, the music, the friendship that can live through any season." Just then, a rustling came from the trees. From the shadows emerged a group of young creatures, tiny mice, a sleepy badger cub, a family of sparrows. Each one held a small stone, glowing faintly. "They said the stones sang to them," whispered one of the elder squirrels. "Called them here." Lyria's eyes widened. The Heartstone shared its gift. One by one, the small creatures approached. They weren't there to ask for warmth or food. They had come to offer something: a pebble painted with stars, a feather braided with dew thread, a pine cone wrapped in velvet moss. "They brought heart gifts," Thistle murmured, "to carry the light forward." In that moment, Lyria raised the Heartstone high above her head. A beam of color spiraled into the sky, painting ribbons of light across the clouds. It was a sign, a promise, that what had bloomed in the cold would not be forgotten. Then, the whispering willow's glow lit once more in the distance. A soft wind carried a melody across the valley. Lyria's song, now sung by the forest itself. Winter would end, yes, but the music, the warmth, and the memory of what had been shared would echo in every leaf, every stream, every corner of the enchanted valley, forever. The sun was beginning to rise, casting golden light over the valley. The snow had started to melt, revealing patches of green peeking through the white blanket. It was a quiet morning, the kind where everything feels new and full of possibility. Lyria stood at the edge of the glade, the Heartstone nestled safely in her pouch. Beside her, Thistle looked out at the scene, a satisfied smile on her face. "You know," Thistle said, her voice soft, "I never thought I'd see the day when winter would end like this." Lyria nodded. "It's not the end, Thistle. It's just another beginning, a season of warmth, growth, and change." As if on cue, the first of the spring blossoms began to bloom, bright purple crocuses and soft yellow daffodils, their petals opening wide to greet the sun. The valley, once quiet and still, was now alive with color and sound. The animals gathered once more in the glade, as if drawn by the promise of the season ahead. The glow of the Heartstone remained, although dimmer now, its light softened by the new warmth in the air. Lyria stepped forward and lifted her flute to her lips. She began to play, not the songs of winter, but a new melody, a song of spring, of renewal, and of everything the valley had become. The music flowed through the trees, over the meadows, and into the hearts of all who heard it. It was a song of hope, a song of life. And as Lyria played, the Heartstone shimmered one last time, its light fading slowly, like the last star at dawn. But its magic lived on in the music, in the land, and in the hearts of the creatures who had shared this journey. The animals danced beneath the trees, their paws and claws tapping to the rhythm. The air smelled of fresh earth and new beginnings, and the sun bathed the valley in a warm, golden glow. And as Lyria's flute sang the final notes, the valley knew one thing for certain, that no matter how cold the winter had been, the warmth of the heart and the power of kindness, music, and friendship would always carry them through. The melody would never end. It would echo in the hearts of all, forever. And so, the story of the winter's promise became a legend, passed down through generations, a tale of a little songbird and her friends who turned winter into a season of magic, warmth, and endless light. The end.